Okay. Hello everyone. Good to see every one here. There's a lot of you already waiting, and we still have about 12 minutes to the official start of the live stream. As usual, I start a little earlier. Rafi should be coming on soon. He should be coming on at 9 o'clock, so in about 10 minutes or so. The title today is lenders shadow banking exposure tops 1 trillion. And US regulators are warning about this as if there weren't more, problems out there like derivatives, interest rates, uh, commercial real estate, geopolitics. So we're going to look into that. We're going to have a chat with Rafi as well. And as usual, I'll be taking your questions. But right now, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to say hello to everyone. Full of Hope is here. Hi, Full of Hope. Ohio Silver says, hi, Mario. I think I saw earlier that Rumpelstiltskin is here, and he says good morning because he's in Japan. Rumpelstiltskin. Dutch Libertarian says happy Sunday. Maneko, Rudy, and Rafi. Yeah, Rudy, he was down lying on the floor, but a few minutes ago he just jumped on the sofa. He kind of knows it's time for the live stream, I guess. Darren Smith is here. Uh, Celtic Cross or Celtic Cross says good evening. Jonathan Wilson, hello everyone. John Murphy, Shadow Shady, money laundering. No, I'm not sure. Uh, it's to do with money laundering. It's more to do with the hedge funds, private equity. Um, they're doing stuff basically that the banks are not allowed to do uh, because of regulations. So that's what we'll look at. And then, of course, we're going to talk about other things. Jake's Custom Parts is here, Native American. And Andy Brown says happy Sunday to everyone. Andrew Rama. What event will take for banks to tank? Yeah, I mean, I think the smaller banks are tanking already. They will fight tooth and nail, the Fed and the Treasury, to keep the big banks going because they're key to the whole system. Fox Moongaze, hi Mario Rudy from Hampshire, UK. Christopher Vo, hi Christopher. Do you follow George Gammon? No, I don't follow George Gammon. Andrew Watson says, hi Mario from Basingstoke. Native American crypto making good profits at the moment. Well, you only make a profit on something if you cash in. Just let you know that though. It's like real estate people, a lot of people talk about, oh, my house is, I'm making so much on my house. No, you only make it on your house or on crypto or on anything if you cash in for real money. That's why in gold and silver there are no profits because gold and silver are money. They are at the base of the inverted pyramid. Um, Indy is here, says free Assange. Yeah, I agree with that. He's been held. Yeah, he's been in prison with no charge for many years. Um, People talk about Putin having political prisoners, but we have political prisoners in the West as well. I heard Tucker Carlson supposedly, it's not confirmed, he also interviewed Edward Snowden while he was in Russia. So that could be interesting. Could be an interesting interview. Chris Conman, nice to see you. Hannah, my puppy Wrigley says hi to Rudy. Rudy says hi to Wrigley. Sweet Stacker says keep up your good work. I think you mean. I don't profess to be a god, so I think you misspelled there the word. Yeah, Rafi, the last time he was on the channel was just around Christmas time. I interviewed him when I was in Switzerland around Christmas time. Over here, Mary, I suggest watching the Poplar Report guys. Got some straightforward talk and a neat sense of humor. The other guys I like listening to, I've been listening a bit more, is the Duran guys. They're interesting. My wife likes watching them. Jane DR, good evening, Mario, and the sleepy Rudy. Yeah. Well, we went out for a walk about an hour and a half ago, and we had a really long walk. We just kept going. So that's why I think he's tired. AF Rules says Carlson couldn't get much out of Putin. Well, I disagree, actually. Putin spoke for most of the 2 hours plus. And I think what people are not used in the US and here in Europe is people want like quick answers. They want entertainment. Putin gave us a lesson, which we should be thankful for, no matter, even if you believe it wasn't true. I personally think there's no reason for him to lie, even though people are going to disagree with me. But I couldn't see any of our politicians giving a half an hour lesson in history and talking about how the dollar is like the United States and Western Europe are shooting themselves in the foot in terms of their currencies by imposing all these sanctions and confiscating assets. He didn't even mention the confiscation of Russian reserves, though, which I thought was interesting. Jillian B says, "Hi, Mara Rudy from Perthshire or Perthshire." uh, Blue Water Stacks. The giveaway package is at Gold Investments. Keep a gold back for yourself since you don't have any in your stack. Thank you, Blue Water Stacks. I'll have a word with them this week, and I'll see when I can make it there. We still around 96,000 in terms of subscribers, so we'll have a while until get to 100,000. I mean, I've had people say that they think the content is good and improving, but yeah, 100,000 be nice. But I like to see more views per video. It seemed to be stuck around a certain level, but again, I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to keep going. Mir thinks AI is going to hit the workforce like COVID. Michael Kennedy says, "Hi, Mario. Hi, Michael." Paul Weens from Southern Manitoba. Belly Dance Arabia says the Hunt family owns the Chiefs in Durama. I follow him. He's Dutch. Putin needs to exchange the American spy for Assange. That would be epic. Yeah, but does Assange want to go to Russia? I'm not sure. Yeah, he's supposedly, the thing that Tucker Carlson, I'm not having a go at him, but he said, well, the guy is only 32. He's young, how can you keep him? But I would have, if I was Putin, I would have said, well, the new prime minister of France is 34. What are you talking about? Just because he's 32. It's a silly argument. There's only one way. Thank you for the super chat. Putin for PM. Buy Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm going to stick with gold and silver, but thank you for the super chat. Mary, do you have 100,000 with Rumble subs? No, Rumble, I don't really get much views on Rumble. I post there, but my really best platform is YouTube. Oh, Rafi's here. Let's admit him into the Native American thinks Trump will pardon Assange. Pardon him for what? He didn't commit any crimes. Hi, Rafi.
Hi, Mario. Good to see you again.
Yeah, I was telling the viewers we hadn't spoken since around Christmas time when I was in Switzerland.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. You
Good
doing
to be
okay?
back.
Yeah, I've been fine. And you?
Um, I'm every day that passes, I'm thankful for it that nothing crazy has happened. Never know
Yeah,
what's gonna happen tomorrow.
that's good. That's good. Um, Chris Gunman says, can you explain the stock to flow ratio of gold in years? Yeah, I'll explain that, and then Rafi can add on. Basically, it's because gold, very little gold has ever been consumed. And so there's all the gold that has been mined throughout history is still around. And what it means basically is that I think the stock to flow, I might be wrong, is somewhere around 70 or 80 years. So that means that there's 80 years of gold production over ground. So the importance about that is that supply and demand from mines. If you find a big mine somewhere, let's say people were talking about Zaire, not Zaire, but Uganda a few years ago that they found trillions, which was a bit of a non-story, really. Yeah, what it means is that the supply dynamics, in gold doesn't really impact the price because there's so much gold around. And that's why one of the reasons why it's money, because it's so stable, because of that stock to flow ratio. Other commodities, they're consumed. So their stock to flow ratio is like maybe sometimes 6 months or a year, and gold is like 80 years. Do you want to add on to that, Rafi?
Just to say that what one of the things that makes gold such a great money is that it grows more or less with population. The supply above ground grows with population because as population grows, so does the technology to feed that population. From there, the technology to mine more gold comes. So, in a natural sense, the gold supply expands with the population, which is what would keep um, prices in a more liquid state, together with the ability to produce things, right? So there's no other commodity like that.
No, and that's why when people say, "Oh, we should back the currency with oil," and even though the dollar has been like a petrodollar, oil, the stock to flow ratio is really low, and it's not really money. The reason why it looks like the dollar is backed by gold is it's not really. You can't really redeem, go to the bank and get a barrel of oil. But the thing is, the agreement between the US and Saudi Arabia was a political one with gold. Gold is more like the most marketable commodity. It's like a natural thing. Would you agree, Rafi?
Uh, Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, let's get to the first main topic that I have here, Rafi. And I think I sent you this, and you even put it on your report. Lenders' shadow banking exposure tops $1 trillion. Regulators wave red flag. So I'm gonna share this story here, and I saw this, I think, early yesterday. It came out on Saturday because I think this warning came out on Friday. So, uh, shadow banks are basically like lenders, people that lend money or finance projects that are not a bank. And the regulators are worried now because the amount that banks, like the big banks in the US, have lent to the shadow banks is gone over $1 trillion. And so here we go. Here's the story. The amount of financial institutions have loaned to shadow banks such as fintech and private credit groups has passed $1 trillion. Regulators warn that the growing ties between traditional and alternative lenders could present systemic risks. And one is interesting thing is this year, the amount is up 12% in the past year, making it one of banking's fastest growing business when overall loans has been sluggish, up just 2%. And the other thing I would say, Rafi, to know if you agree, the banks are already lending money they don't have because we have fractional reserves. So I would say the 1 trillion is even more of a problem. Here's the growth of shadow loans to shadow banking.
Mhm.
Do you want to add on to this problem?
Uh,
And yeah,
so I would say here that when let's say you want to make it illegal to charge predatory interest or something to poor people, right? Like poor people are usually charged higher interest rates on their loans because they have a higher risk profile, so they have to pay higher interest to compensate for that. And then typically the government comes in and says you can't do that. It's not fair to poor people. You got to charge it the same rate. And then defaults happen, and then interest rates rise anyway. So the shadow banks are basically the loan sharks for businesses because it's not that they're predatory or anything, but if regulators are going to prevent traditional banks from offering loans at lower interest rates, then the market will get around that and they'll loan the money anyway, but through a hedge fund or through some other financial institution that isn't technically a bank. And then you'll have a whole shadow banking system because the laws require it and they need something to get around it with.
yeah,
It's the same with drug laws. Like you think you're gonna prevent drugs from getting into the hands of addicts because of drug laws? No, you're just gonna make it more expensive and you're gonna put the drugs in the equivalent of the hands of shadow pharmacies. You can call a drug dealer a shadow pharmacy. It's the same kind of concepts, but money's going to get where it wants to go, no matter what. And this is where it's going. And if the loan sharks, if the shadow banks didn't loan it, then the banks would loan it.
yeah. What's interesting here is that in 2010, when banks were first required to break out their lending to non-banks, the loans totaled just over 50 billion. So that's a big increase from 50 billion to a trillion. And you kind of wonder if there's more stuff being done through derivatives. I'm not sure. It seems like banks always like to create derivatives for everything.
Mhm. Um, so yeah, 50 billion to a trillion, but that'll just follow inflation.
Yeah, oh yeah, talking about inflation. I don't know if you heard listened or read about the Putin Carlson interview. I thought it was weird because Putin said, the U.S. is 33 trillion in debt. U.S. is, shooting itself in the foot by, the dollar, because of the dollar, they're sanctioned using it as a political weapon. But then he said, oh, U.S. inflation is under control. It's around 3-4%. I wonder what he was thinking there.
I think he was just thinking in terms of consumer price increases. I mean,
Yeah.
Putin is Keynesian like the rest of them. He's not as extreme, but he doesn't fully understand money either. But it was refreshing to hear, not necessarily, I'm not saying that he was speaking the truth, but it's nice to hear a world leader at least sound like a world leader and make what sound like coherent points, even if they're lies. It's still refreshing to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it was his history lesson was pretty good, I thought, and I think people in the West don't appreciate the long interviews because they want everything quick and like a show.
Mhm. Yeah, well, our collective attention spans have been smashed for decades now, and they're now down to like snippets and seconds. We can only watch like 30-second videos now.
Yeah, or yeah, 30-second shorts, isn't it? It's called. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly for my UK viewers, but for viewers everywhere is this here. Boris Johnson has meltdown after being exposed for sabotaging Ukraine peace deal. And I mean, this is the guy who's calling for people to join the army to go fight Russia. And I thought that was quite interesting. I thought that was a big part of this interview that he said that Boris Johnson, sabotaged the peace deal. And apparently, he said it's not true. Of course, he came out and denied it. But there's a former MP, Nadine Dorries. She wrote a book, and she's a real, Boris partisan. And she said in the book, uh, proudly wrote that Boris was responsible for killing a peace deal with Russia over Ukraine, as it was the right thing to do, in Boris's apparent words. So the reason I'm showing this is because it shows that, you know, no matter where you are, it does, uh, the leaders seem to be, corrupt everywhere. It's not just in Russia or the US or where you are, Rafi. And that's why I think we just need to focus on ourselves. What's your view on that?
In terms of all world leaders being corrupt. Um,
Well,
I mean,
99.9% or 99.
yeah, I mean they are, but none of them are in charge. I
Yeah,
mean, Boris Johnson wasn't in charge when he was in charge. Biden definitely isn't in charge.
no,
Bibi isn't the one running Israel. None of the European leaders are running Europe. And
yeah,
there's the deep state. There's the people that are running these leaders. And I don't know exactly who the deep state is, but I have an idea. And there isn't one major power behind all of it. It's just that the people that seem corrupt are the people that want war, are the people that are being puppeted by bigger organizations in the background, whether you want to call it the World Economic Forum or the Bank of International Settlements. It's all these people with the control the money, and
yeah.
they're the
Uh,
ones running things.
And I think they choose people they can control, so they'll do their bidding. They must have stuff on them. Yeah, it's sad. Um, but I guess it's been like that forever. Um, moving on, let's have a look here. Oh yeah. This is pretty good, Rafi. I don't know if you've seen this, and this is to do with inflation and how, you're talking how Putin is a Keynesian, which is true. But let's listen to Biden. He's complaining about private companies charging too much.
The Super Bowl Sunday. If you're anything like me, you like to be surrounded by a snack or two while watching the big game. When buying snacks for the game, you might have noticed one thing. Sports drinks bottles are smaller. The bag of chips has fewer chips. They're still charging it just as much. And as an ice cream lover, what makes me the most angry is that ice cream cartons have actually shrunk in size, but not in price. I've had enough of what they call shrinkflation. It's a ripoff. Some companies are trying to pull a fast one by shrinking the products little by little and hoping you won't notice. Give me a break. The American public is tired of being played for suckers. I'm calling on companies to put a stop to this. Let's make sure businesses do the right thing now.
So, Rafi, I'll let you like
It's
back
such
that.
so sad and pathetic to watch him. He so stop printing and spending it, and that won't happen. Like what?
Yeah, I know, but
He's the
I'm
one doing it.
Yeah, I know, and I've got something here. Whenever people tweet about that, because a lot of people buy into it, they listen to that and they're too lazy to do their homework. And this is what I bring out and I reply, I'm gonna share it with you guys. It's one of my favorite Austrians. Hold on, if I can get this thing up. Here we go. Yeah, there you go. The state alone is responsible for inflation. Inflation without government or indeed against government is impossible. So there you go.
It's like that the messages from political leaders are just so sadly shallow that that's why it was at least refreshing to hear Putin try to make a point about history. And I don't know much about Russian history, but it was interesting to listen to a leader say something that isn't just completely non-starter inane, right? Like that entire commercial for against
Yeah.
shrinkflation.
Yeah, I mean, and shrinkflation, that's been happening for years, even before 2020. People think there was no inflation, from 2008 to 2020, but that's not true, at least here in the UK, and I'm sure in Israel as well, Rafi.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of shrinkflation here. No, I see it. It's pretty obvious. I see it in the peanut butter that I get. I actually have peanut butter from 2020. When the lock right before the lockdown started, we decided to just buy a whole bunch of food and stick it in a closet. So I have some of the stuff from back then, the non-perishables, and the peanut butter is a lot bigger in 2020 than it is now. It's
And the
happening here
price
too.
is a bit, probably even higher, the price, no?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move a little bit to the banks, Rafi, and about the BTFP and reverse repo. And I'm sure you noticed recently the small banks like New York Community Bank Corp and some others dropped quite a bit. Do you think this is contained, or do you think they're going to let smaller banks go under and the big banks will take their deposits? How do you see this going forward, or could it also spill over into the big banks?
Yeah, they're going to let, I mean, Powell said this explicitly on his interview with that Scott, whatever his name is, the guy that doesn't sound human. Um, they none of them do, but he had an interview where Powell just said openly, yeah, some small banks are going to have to close or be merged out of existence, and their assets and their deposits going to be bigger banks. So yeah, this is going to happen. Um, but the big banks are going to have a problem too when there are no more dollars left to circulate with given the amount of debt load, and they have to print more. So what's going to be the time lag from the time where the next batch of small banks are going to go out of existence, and when the first big bank really starts to fall? I guess I would look at Wells Fargo. I think Wells Fargo is the weakest of the really big banks. So when that one starts to really fall, then that could take down other big banks too. But I think the first big bank to fall is going to be Wells Fargo. Might be wrong on that, but that's my feeling.
Rafi, do you want to go over, you spoke in your report, if you don't mind me bringing up, about purchasing power? Maybe explain to the viewers what's going on now vis-a-vis, the S&P, cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, I was just responding to the disappointing and frustrating fact that gold is it's healthy above 2000, but gold stocks are still in the toilet. And then you got all these people invested in the S&P 500 in Bitcoin or energy stocks or whatever it might be, and they're counting their gains, right? I guarantee you none of them is sold out and locked in the gains at all. Even if they've locked in the gains in dollars, they haven't locked it in gold or in real money. But the point there is that these gains are there's no such thing as sorry, when you have a financial crisis, right? What is actually happening is not the destruction of purchasing power. It is rather the shifting of purchasing power from all of these assets that are now, people are saying, wow, look at all my gains in Bitcoin, look at all my gains in stocks, look at all my gains in this and that. They think they have gains, but if they all try to lock them in at the same time, they would have to lock them into gold and silver. And in a financial crisis, what's happening is that all those gains that people thought they have are funneling into the bottom of the pyramid, which is gold and silver. So all of the gains that those people think that they have will just be shifted into the stackers, once the money collapses, once the dollar collapses. Because in a financial crisis, let's say there's a financial crisis, but there's no war, then the world still has the same amount of stuff. It's just that the who can buy that stuff, who has claims to that stuff, shifts from owners of paper assets on the top of the, or owners of derivatives, or owners of all this other stuff on the top, shifts to the bottom. And so all the gains that they think they have are going to come to us at some point soon. And the more dramatic that shift is, that is the extremity of the financial crisis, the shift itself, because that's what is destabilizing, when people think that they have all this claim on all these real assets, but they don't, and then suddenly they're poor and their whole lives are upended, and that happens across the world. And who's on the receiving end of that? Us. And as their illusion goes higher and higher, and they think they have higher and higher purchasing power, then on the other side of it, the gold and gold stocks have lower and lower purchasing power, seemingly, until that all reverses. And that's what we're waiting for. And if you understand the logic of that, then you don't have any fear of missing out on any of this and saying, or getting jealous. Oh, I should have been in Bitcoin. I should have been in stocks. Yeah, if you don't understand what happens at the end, then it can disturb you. But if you understand what happens in the end, that all the purchasing power flows into gold and silver in the end, because it is the most liquid of commodities, then this is temporary, and it's not going to last that much longer.
Yeah, and the guy who devised this inverted pyramid was John Exter, and he was a central banker, so he knew a thing or two. He died in 2006. I know it's can be frustrating, like Rafi said, and you have to be patient, and a lot of times you can't give in to jealousy or envy, seeing people, because someone actually before you came on asked me, oh, so and so is making a lot of profit on this, and I said, well, you only make the profit if you liquidate into money. Until you do that, you haven't. And I think what happens in these bubbles is that people get greedy and they don't sell. Very few people have they have the self-control to liquidate and maybe go and put their money into money, or their currency into real money. And then when it turns, they can't get out. Is that the way you see how things are gonna pen out, Rafi?
Yeah, I mean, most people that brag about their winnings, especially the people that brag about their winnings, they definitely have not liquidated. It's the people that don't brag about their winnings, maybe they liquidated into dollars, but nobody's liquidating into gold. So it's mostly, all these gains are in their head because they imagine how much they have claim to. But that all changes in the end. The dollars that they have don't have claim to much anymore, but something does, right? When the dollar loses its claim on goods, by definition, all that purchasing power goes into what the dollar is a derivative of. It goes
Yeah,
down the derivative chain.
yeah, gold and I'd add silver as well. Have you read this book, Rafi, Extraordinary Popular Delusions?
And the Madness of Crowns, I've read parts of it, but I'm familiar
Yeah.
with it.
I'm reading over the South Sea bubble again, and the South Sea Company um, was created in 1711 and was supposed to help the government get out of debt, the UK government.
Sounds like
And
a good idea.
yeah, and not many people know though that they had about 86 mini bubbles, or kind of altcoins, for the South Sea bubble, and people just created all these companies, and it just sounds really familiar to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I'll read one for you. Number 13. Petition of several of His Majesty's loyal subjects of the City of London and other parts of Great Britain, praying to be incorporated for carrying on general insurance from losses by fire within the Kingdom of England. So they're just creating all these companies on the back of the South Sea Company. And they went to like exorbitant levels. And one of the guys who lost a fortune and actually lost almost everything he had was Sir Isaac Newton, who wasn't a stupid guy. he got trapped in the South Sea bubble.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, that's why
He
I
lo-
think
did he lose everything? How much did he lose?
a lot. He wasn't, he was okay, but he lost a big chunk of his fortune with that. Yeah.
At what age, do you know?
Let's have a look. Because he was also the
Curious.
master of the mint. He set up the gold standard for England.
He's the
Uh,
one who set it at 15.5 or 15
yeah,
point.
the gold silver ratio. So he wasn't a stupid guy, and he got caught. So he was in his he died in 1727 at age 84. So he was in his 70s. So
Wow,
there you
poor
go.
guy.
Yeah. But I think he was all right. But
So
got
he
a
wasn't a good investor and he wasn't a good chemist either. I think
no.
he tried his hand at alchemy at some point. He tried to turn lead into gold and didn't work.
Yeah. Chris Conman, thank you for your super chat. If the Fed starts QE and ZERP to bring down interest rates and the long end of the yield curve does not respond but moves higher instead, he means yields, what would happen to the monetary system then? Thanks. I'll let you answer that first, Rafi.
What do you mean? Is his question if they go back to zero interest rates and QE and interest rates instead of going down go up, is that
On
the
the
end of the
long,
monetary
yeah,
system?
yeah, on the long end. No, what would happen to the monetary system then?
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if that is actually possible. It might be. I mean, that would seem to be the end of it to me, but I don't think that if the Fed offers to buy bonds, I don't think that at least nominally interest rates will go up. Um, I mean, they would go up in the sense that consumer prices would head higher in a hyperinflationary spiral. Um, but I don't see if the Fed decides to restart QE and buy all these bonds, why nominally interest rates would fall. What would just happen? Why they would rise? What would happen is they would probably fall close to zero again, or wherever the lows are, where they were before, and then you'd see the dollar's purchasing power really start to bleed heavily, and that would be the end of the monetary system. But if I'm
Yeah.
wrong and rates go higher, then okay, so be it. Either way, I'm not in bonds.
Yeah. So, Chris, my answer is that I agree with everything Rafi said. They would be able to take nominal rates down to zero because they can just create as many reserves as they want out of thin air and go into the bond market and buy the treasuries. And we've seen a central bank do that, and it's the Bank of Japan. They've been doing it for years, and 10-year JGB yield is up until recently was near zero with CPI at 3-4%, which is probably like doctored as well in Japan. But the consequence of that is the collapse of the yen here versus gold. So we've gone from around 60,000 around just before the financial crisis, and we're now at 302,000. So I'd expect that to happen to the dollar as well if they start QE and ZERP again.
Yeah. Yeah, the minute they go to ZERP the next time, I think from that point on, we have like only weeks left until the dollar completely disintegrates. But we're not there yet. So we have to get back to zero, and
Yeah,
then the end will come quickly.
yeah. Let me see here about what he did at the Royal Mint. That could be an interesting topic to look at. Isaac Newton. Let's have a look. So in the 1690s, Newton wrote a number of religious tracts dealing with literal and symbolic interpretation of the Bible. That's not what we wanted. Uh, as a warden afterwards, master of the Royal Mint, Newton estimated that 20% of the coins taken during the Great Recoinage were counterfeit. Uh,
Oh, you mean clipped? Yeah.
counterfeit. Some of them might have been counterfeit too. Does it talk about the South Sea bubble event. No, but it's in this book here. I'm going to read through that again. Um, I wanted to show you, Rafi, and then you can talk about maybe the gold futures, but I want to show you and the viewers. I was doing a little bit of technical analysis for gold, and I'm just going to share it here now. So here we go. We got actually two charts here. The big chart is gold since 2011, and the red line here is like 2000. So we've had a real battle here to break through 2000. We tried it 3 times. Now it seems like we're holding above it. I think the last time we were below 2000 I checked was the 13th of December last year. So it's been like almost 2 months. And this one here, and I'm going to enlarge it. And I remember this well because I started looking at gold around 320. That's when I first bought. And then if you look back to like 1990, there was like 400 was like 2000 now. Tried it a few times, 1, 2, 3. Then we tried it a fourth time and it failed. And then it went back up and it never went below 400 again. So I actually think we are pretty much there. And if you look here, there's a huge cup and handle here and here as well. It's a little different. It's not, if you look at the top in 2011, it actually dropped a little bit like this top here. And then it created this teacup here as well. So what do you think?
Do I think we're going to break above the 2100 anytime soon? I'm a little bit worried because I do know that the next financial crisis is going to temporarily bring down the prices of gold and silver. Because in a financial crisis, the priority is to have enough dollars to service your debt so you can stay in business, right? Nothing else matters as much as that. So the question is, how far is it going to bring down gold and how fast is the Fed going to react? The Fed is going to react immediately, so it's not going to be that much time. But I do think that we have one more trip to some scary low. The term scary low, it's all relative. Like, what scares you? I mean, we used to think that 1900 was really, really high. Now the thought of going back there is scary. So is that the final low? There's going to be one more low somewhere in a place where none of us want to go in, and then the Fed will reverse, and then I think from there we're just going to go vertical. The other thing that has me worried is the high number of open interest contracts in the silver. It's a little bit too high right now, and it's been going up as silver has been declining. So it's telling me that the shorts are putting a lot of pressure on the longs right now, and they could cause some capitulation there. But we'll see. I mean, I think whatever's going to happen is going to happen this year. But you got to be ready for a jerk down that it could be scary.
Yeah, I just found out here, Rafi Newton was invested in the South Sea Company and lost 20,000 pounds or 4.4 million pounds in 2020 prices when it collapsed in around 1720. I mean, 20,000 pounds, that's like the equivalent of 20,000 gold sovereigns, which is a quarter of an ounce. So it's a lot of purchasing power he lost there. And this is what do you do? This is what he did. As a result of a report written by Newton on September 21st, 1717, to the Lords Commission of His Majesty's Treasury, the bimetallic relationship between gold coins and silver coins was changed by royal proclamation on December 22nd forbidding the exchange of gold guineas for more than 21 silver shillings. This inadvertently resulted in a silver shortage as silver coins were used to pay for imports while uh, gold exports were paid for in gold, effectively moving Britain from the silver standard to its first gold standard. So, but I think that ratio, yeah, was disrupted there, but it stayed pretty much the same until 1914 because 20 shillings was a pound for a long time. And 20 shillings, I've got a shilling here, 20 of these were like a gold sovereign. So, yeah.
So Newton is the one who put the pound on a gold standard from a silver standard?
Yeah, inadvertently because he set up the wrong ratio.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm trying to say is that the ratio eventually kind of went back to where he set it. So he wasn't like wrong, and I'm sure he didn't do it out of the blue. He did look at the market because I don't think he was a Keynesian. He was just trying to help put the country on a bimetallic standard. So
Wait, what was that? What was the ratio he put it on?
I think, like you said, it was like 14.3 or to 1.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. A
The thing
little.
is, didn't any of them just realize that the ratio can't just stay constant at a number? Like that doesn't make sense that it would. Why didn't any of them propose just have two monies, two derivatives, one gold derivative, one silver derivative, and have people trade them? Like why is that so difficult?
Yeah, well, I mean, nowadays people don't even, there's a lot of things like that nowadays, isn't it? That people don't, that are so uh, obvious to us and self-evident. But I think this was a huge loss, this 20,000 in the South Sea Company.
Yeah. Poor
And
guy.
yeah, and I think what's happening today with BlackRock and other people getting into the uh, Bitcoin ETFs, that's going to bring in a lot more suckers into the game. What do you think?
It might. Um, and in terms of one of the arguments that the Bitcoin people like to make is that Bitcoin can't be inflated, right?
Yeah,
And one of the counter arguments that our side makes is, well, there's all kinds of different cryptocurrencies. Anyone can just invent a new one. It's really the same thing. And they'll say, no, Bitcoin is special because there's only one Bitcoin and the
yeah,
rest are just shitcoins or whatever they like to call them. But there is another, like, it's not that the inflation is inflation of, like, really when the dollar is printed, it's printed as a gold derivative, right? So it's not the dollar that's inflating. It's you're pretending that the gold supply is higher than it is by printing a receipt for gold, which is the inflation. So for Bitcoin, the inflation of Bitcoin would be um, an ETF in Bitcoin that might not be backed by it one for one, or futures on an ETF on Bitcoin, or options on those futures on the Bitcoin, and you have all these Bitcoin derivatives. And that leads to the inflation of Bitcoin because people trade the Bitcoin ETF instead of Bitcoin itself. So that's where inflation really comes from. It's the inflation of the derivatives. You can't inflate money itself. You can inflate derivatives. So
yeah.
yeah, maybe you can't inflate Bitcoin itself, but you can inflate its derivatives. You can inflate the ETFs, and it's going to come to that.
Mm. So we'll look at some questions now, Rafi, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
Uh, Jane DR is asking, will Biden make it to March? Someone tweeted the other day or posted on X, uh, when will Biden be going? And I actually said March only because of the Ides of March. That's when they assassinated Julius Caesar. What do you think, Rafi? Not that it's really that important because it's all a circus anyway.
Yeah, is he going to make it to March? Well, I hear a lot of chatter that now it's undeniable that he's got dementia. Maybe it's Alzheimer's, maybe it's something else. But I don't really know what the Democrats can do about this. I mean, unless he really just dies, I don't know, maybe they'll kill him. I don't know. I think that would be the easiest way to get rid of him is just to, I don't know, put something in his oatmeal. I'm not suggesting this. No, I'm not suggesting anybody assassinate the president. Not saying that. I'm just saying if I were high up in the Democratic National Committee or whatever they call it, Biden dying would be very convenient for me right now.
The other thing I saw, Hillary Clinton said, "Oh, yeah, he is a problem. You know, his age is a problem." So why wasn't his age a problem, 4 years ago when he was running? That's my question. And the other thing as well, you could be 81 or however old he is, and you can be, in good shape, and your mind could be really good. So I don't think it's the age. I think it's like you said, it's the fact that he's got dementia. Someone asked about the gold silver ratio. I think the highest it's ever been. Well, here it is. It's 100 around 127, and that was in March 2020 when we had that big shakeout and everything. And I think the key level here is 80. Um, we need to break below 80 to see silver start performing again. What's your view on the ratio, Rafi?
We're gonna head back to somewhere around 15-1 at some point, and that will happen when there's no more gold derivatives that function. Because I mean, the reason that we are even no, we're nowhere near 15-1 now is because silver has been out of the monetary system for so long that people forget that it even was a money. They just think of it as merchandise now. But when the gold derivatives no longer function, there's nothing else to turn to. You have to go to silver because there's no other way to divide gold. So either you do it by derivative, so with pieces of paper or with digits on a computer, and you say, well, I'm giving you this notional amount of gold, which is a tiny little fraction of it, and then you can execute retail trade by that. But if that doesn't work because nobody trusts the derivative, you got to use coins. And that's what I really believe, that in the immediate aftermath of the end game, for maybe a few weeks, a few months, or whatever it's going to be, you're literally going to have to you're going to have to pass around coins to get what you need. And by that, humanity will be introduced to what money really is, and they'll get a feel for it in their hands. This is what Mises said this straight up in Theory of Money and Credit towards the end of the book. He's like, we can't do with these gold standards and trust government to have a standard that and then not inflate over it. No, we got to get people used to the idea of putting coins in their pockets and handing them to merchants to buy what they want and having their pockets get lighter when they spend money and knowing what that feels like. And I don't think it's going to stay that way, but I do think we do have to get back there, if however briefly, to reintroduce to ourselves what money is. And that's where we will go. And we'll need junk silver for that.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's something no one's expecting, and that's why I guess I'm home of alternative economics and contrarian views. I was reading, Rafi, a book by Ken Follett. It's about the Napoleonic Wars. It's like a historical novel, and some of the stuff is fiction, like the characters, but the events are real. And this is the period where Napoleon was exiled to Elba, not St. Helena. It was Elba was 1814, 1815, and then he escaped and he went back to France, to Paris. And but when he was in Elba, the British they went into France and not Belgium. There's no Belgium at the time, but they went to Brussels and they had a headquarters there, and all the English aristocracy went there quite a bit. And there's a part where they say in the book that they were paying 4 shillings for a bottle of champagne, and 4 shillings is basically like 4 of these little silver coins. And I did some calculations today. That would be, if you look at that would make silver totally undervalued. Silver would have to be like 200 to 300 pounds now, so you could afford champagne now. And I'm sure they didn't drink cheap champagne, the aristocracy.
Wait, so you're saying 4 shillings for a bottle of champagne is expensive? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think it's cheap. It's cheap in terms of today's price of silver.
Um,
You'd have to, it would be, because 4 shillings is the equivalent of 12 pounds today.
mhm.
And a bottle of champagne, can range from 60 pounds to 200, depending on the quality.
Mhm.
So that's
You're
what I'm
saying
trying.
silver was worth a lot more back then than it is now. Okay.
Yeah, you could
Well,
buy,
that's because they use it as the money.
yeah, and in 1815, they'd been at war for like over 20 years, and I'm sure in 1892, when it started, you could probably buy champagne for 2 shillings. So there's that too.
hmm
Someone mentioned here if you going down to Mexico or something. Have you been to Mexico or?
I've been to Mexico once, but as a kid.
Oh, all right. I don't know why they mentioned that. Anyway. Oh yeah, could you talk a little bit about the Treasury auctions this year that the Treasury issued almost no notes or long-term paper last year, and now they're gonna either have to issue more long-term paper, and if they don't, it could risk them paying a lot higher interest costs.
Right. So actually I can share the screen here on my do I have the
Yeah,
ability
let
to?
me okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I have this file open actually. This is the SIFMA file. There's a few interesting tabs here. So here this is the Treasury bills Treasury securities outstanding, like in each category. So if I zoom in, try to make it bigger. Here it is. Okay. So zoom in, you can see here that bills were at $5.6 trillion, 5.675 trillion. And let's see if I can move this bar. Okay, I got it. So 5.6758 trillion is an all-time record. And if we go back to it goes all the way back to 2013 here. You see there was the amount in 2020 when there was that, all the lockdown spending and there was huge issuance of bills that was just under 5 trillion. Well, now we're even higher than that. We're at 5.675 trillion. And if you look at we can go here to net issuance, right? So I'm going to zoom in on this tab also. We go here and we see in the notes category, I'm highlighting it over here. So for 2023, the net issuance of notes, that's 2 years to 10 years maturity, is negative 23.9. So the supply of notes is now $24 billion less than it was last year. Right? So you
Yeah.
almost never have a year where there's net negative issuance of notes, but that happened in 2023. And if we go back to 2021 here, right, the net issuance was 2 trillion. Right?
Yeah.
So that was when they were shifting from the bills to the notes. Like here you see in the bills category, there was a net shrinkage of bills outstanding by 1.194 trillion, and they went all into the notes. Right. So this is going to have to happen again because you can't have a situation where you have $5.675 trillion in bills outstanding, and that keeps getting cycled through faster and faster and faster. I mean, they've got to move it. And things when they moved it in 2021, when they moved over the notes, interest rates on notes were basically zero, not exactly zero, but very, very low. Now, if they move the bills debt into the notes category now, then they're going to lock in 4.55% interest rates
For at
for
least 2 years.
10 years.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It wouldn't even matter for the Treasury, who has to service all this debt, and it wouldn't even matter for them if the Fed cuts interest rates, because they've already locked in the rates. So I think the Treasury is waiting for the Fed to be forced to cut to zero in order to start plowing into the notes.
Mm. Yeah. So what if they stay issuing loads of bills? I guess that just, I think they did that in 2023 to try to keep the long-term yields from going higher. So if they try that again, um, i- do you think that means the Fed might not have to do QE? What do you think are the risks if they keep doing this?
I don't know if it's even possible. I mean, you have $5.6 trillion in bills that and most of that is due within 6 months. I mean, I think the amount of outstanding the 1 year bill is not a very popular security. So it's mostly between 1 month and 6 months. So you have like about 5.3 trillion dollars due in 6 months. And so if you want to raise any substantial amount of money in the bills, you have to pay back those bills and raise about twice as much. So they'd have to raise like what, like $10 trillion in bills. I mean, you're getting into numbers here that you'd have to make each auction size, what, like $150 billion or some
Yeah.
crazy amount like that.
So
I don't think this is like mathematically possible to do.
And so I think so what you're saying is that what happened 21 and that they had to revert back to long-term notes, it's going to put pressure on bond prices or longer-term note prices and yields will go up. Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think at some point, we could have the combination of what generally happens in a financial crisis where you run out of dollars. If they're running all these big note auctions while that is happening, we could see a failed auction at one point, which would really freak out the world and would cause a severe dollar panic very quickly. And that's in the beginning of my dabbling with the collapse of the dollar, that was one of the scenarios that I read, that one day there's just going to be a failed auction. No one's going to know why. There's going to be a panic. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's going to happen exactly that way, but that's a very plausible way it could happen.
Yeah, and if you want to keep track of the auctions, the result usually comes out just after 1 p.m. Eastern time, and the number to look at there is the bid to cover ratio, which means, let's say the Treasury issues 1 billion um, T notes, 2 year notes, let's say, and there's 2 billion in bids. That means the bid to cover is 2 to 1. But when that starts up, I think if even if it drops below 2 and you see a one handle in the bids covered, that's going to be serious because I think for years the bids cover has been above 2. And if it gets below 1, then that's like so the proverbial hidden the fan. That would be a failed auction, less than a 1 to 1.
Yeah. I think that might never happen, but if it never happens, then um, it would just be hyperinflation by a different path. By just
Yeah,
pushing rates back to zero and the Fed buying it all. Who knows? But
yeah, and I even think that yeah, the Exchange Stabilization Fund, they have loads of you know, it's a big fund. It started in 1934 with the profits from gold confiscation. They could always intervene in the market, but like you said, they keep doing this. All they're doing is inflating everything more and more. I have a question here, Rafi. Hannah, commercial real estate, New York Times article, zombie offices spell trouble for banks. You want to give your 2 cents on that?
zombie offices spell trouble for banks. Well, we're seeing it now in New York Community Bank Corp. If you go back to the March 2023 era where the regional banks were starting to fail, You can look at these a list of a whole bunch of articles, compiled lists of banks by exposure to commercial real estate. New York Community Bank Corp was number 7 out of the top 25. So they're failing now, and I think number 1 is actually Wells Fargo, which we were talking about earlier.
Oh yeah.
So watch out for Wells Fargo. When Wells Fargo goes under, that's going to freak out the big banks, and they're going to demand some kind of help from the Fed, and that'll be the last help they get.
So here's a New York Community Bank Corp. And I was
Mhm.
watching it last week and it dropped below $4 a few times. But every time it did, it rebounded on the close, but it doesn't look very good. You can see here's a big gap there. Sometimes people say gaps are there to be refilled, but I'm not sure about this one. That's Community Bank. So it's gone from like 14 bucks last summer and it's now at 4.90. Let's have a look at Wells Fargo because I haven't looked at that. Wells Fargo. Oh, it still seems to be okay.
Yeah, right
Uh,
now.
yeah, for now.
But if you zoom out, it's also on a very downward trajectory, going back to 2008, like all banks are.
Yeah. Yeah, and another bank, Citibank, for example, their stock price, they had a reverse 10-to-1 reverse split some years ago because their share price was below $5.
Wait, who
And
is this?
Citibank,
Uh,
yeah. So just because the share price is high in nominal terms doesn't mean they're healthy. So we got 5 minutes, Rafi. You look tired.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's what time is it there now? Midnight or almost in where you are, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Back to midnight.
Ray Foote says, when the repos end on March 11th, is there an alternative route to issue new treasuries? Well, treasuries are not issued through the repo market. Treasuries are issued on the secondary market to primary dealers, and the primary dealers are usually the too big to fail banks and some others. So, and then maybe the next day, the Fed, when there was QE, the Fed would come in and buy those bonds. The Fed can't buy directly from the Treasury. That's not legal. But maybe you could explain that. The reverse repo is just a funding mechanism using treasuries, right, Rafi?
The reverse repos aren't. I don't even think. Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
guess,
yes, they do use Treasury. Yeah, they swap. All right, so the bank gives the Fed cash. The cash gives the bank Treasuries in return, and then they swap it back the next day. And the interest rate on that is 5.3%. So you're saying, what's his question? Does this Treasury supply affect that? Um, I don't think so, because the treasuries that are being swapped belong to the Fed. And even though the Fed is selling treasuries, they're not selling all of them, and they're not even getting close to it. And the Fed will always have enough to collateralize any cash for a reverse repo. I mean, what's going to happen first is that the reverse repo is going to run out in the next few weeks, months. Who knows? I mean, it should fall. I think the last number I saw was like 562 billion. It should fall significantly on Monday. It usually falls on Monday. But it was up this week. I'm not even sure why it was up this week. Because it might be that the Treasury General account, or the Treasury's account of the Fed, has been going down a little bit, which can counteract the reverse repos for a while. But it's like we're talking about this thing as if it's been around forever. Nobody really knows that much about it, because these are the reverse repos never used to
it's a new
exist.
new thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they never existed before, but soon they won't exist again.
Yeah. Steve Spelt, you have often spoken about buying gold. What would spending that gold look like if your money becomes worthless? Maybe a pot on that would be a good idea. Well, It's just like spending money with dollar bills, but yeah, and people will say, well, how much? How do you know how much you have to pay? Well, the free market would determine that. An ounce of gold will probably go very far when the fiat system collapses. But I would say uh, silver will be really good for day to day, but not gold. Gold will be for big purchases. Maybe someone that who didn't do the right thing and was in a lot of debt might have to sell his or her car, and you could buy a really nice car for an ounce of gold.
Yeah, that's why things are going to be so cheap in gold terms, because people are not going to have any other way to acquire their basic needs other than selling whatever assets they have to somebody who has a more liquid commodity that they can use to spend as money,
Yeah.
right? It sounds crazy. Like, why would anyone sell a house for 6, 7 ounces of gold? Why would they do that? Because people need the money to live. That's why they would need to do it.
And that's why people need to read the Austrian School of Economics, and especially their regression theorem analysis of money. And basically, gold is money, and it's the most marketable commodity. It's liquid. It's the most liquid. It's more liquid even than paper money. If you take gold anywhere in the world, you'll be able to get the local currency. But if you take your local currency anywhere in the world, with the exception of few, like the dollar, maybe the euro, they will exchange it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Someone asked Rafi about the gold silver ratio. They asked, what do you think it will take to get that ratio moving lower? Of course, the obvious thing is for silver to start outperforming, but why would it do that, you think?
Why would silver start outperforming? Um, well, when let's say the Fed starts printing again, in response to some financial crisis, and people suddenly start to realize that they've got to get into real money, but they don't have a lot, and gold is way too expensive. So instead of buying gold, they'll buy silver. It's when silver is really when the public wakes up. Like, who buys gold? Really, it's banks and financial institutions and those sorts of things. But the public, if a guy has only like a few $1,000s in savings, if even that much, he's not going to buy like a half an ounce of gold. He'll buy silver because it's just more affordable. So when the public wakes up, that's when silver wakes up. If
Hmm.
gold is over $2,000, that means the banks are starting to wake up, or some huge conglomerate of something that understands that it needs to have gold. They've woken up. When the silver will wake up when the public wakes up, because silver is the public's money.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's great. One last question here, and then we'll uh, stop. Thomas Moran, did you hear Body Shop are going into administration? 22,000 jobs potentially lost. Will this make any difference to the economy? Well, yeah, I don't know if you heard of Body Shop. It's a big chain here. I mean, they were huge when I first moved here in the early 90s.
Mhm.
Yeah, of course it will make a difference to the economy, 22,000 jobs. But we'll have to see if another company takes over the business. Yeah, Rafi, any view on that? I know
I don't know what Body Shop is. What's that?
well, it's just like a chain of stores where you can buy shampoo and cosmetics. It's quite popular here. Yeah.
Look, if a store isn't working or a chain isn't working and it goes bankrupt, then workers find something else to do. It means it wasn't viable, and that's it.
Mm.
Um, but that's what a financial crisis is. It's when the money no longer works, and then everyone in the economy suddenly realizes they're doing the wrong thing, and they all have to figure out what to do at the same time. But that's very difficult, because when everyone is trying to find what they're supposed to do, nobody knows where to put them.
Yeah. The other thing I would say about Body Shop is that it's not a shop or store that you have to go. It's like a basic necessity. It's more discretionary. So I think that shows that people are hard up. They're just spending money on what they need, like basic necessities. So this could mean that other chains similar to Body Shop that have more discretionary products could be in trouble as well. So Rafi, yeah, we're gonna call it a day. Just any quick words to the viewers, something that you think is important, not just financially, maybe spiritually as well. I know you cover that too.
What's spiritually important? Um, don't go on this alone. The guy I co-host with once a month or so, Phil Lowe, he just told me that he was able just to reach out to his neighbors and say, look, if any of you are interested in buying gold and silver, let me know, and we'll start a little local fund and look out for each other if the money collapses. And people answered his call, like not everybody, but he's got a small group of people, around his neighborhood now that are stacking, that are now conscious of it. So we're gonna have to do this in communities and not alone, right? So we have to get in touch with who our friends really are. And you might be surprised if you just go around and talk to your neighbors.
Yeah, that's right. And I get to talk a lot to my neighbors because Rudy makes me take him out 3 times a day. So there you
Mhm.
go. Um, all right, Rafi, thank you, and I really appreciate you staying up this late for the live stream. And I
Thanks.
hope,
It's always a privilege to come on your show.
thank you, and hope you have a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I'm gonna go right to bed.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Okay, bye.